The Shoresearch project is a national project, mostly delivered by associated groups of the Your Shore network in Cornwall. Yeah, so it is a national project, mostly delivered by associated groups of the Your Shore network in Cornwall. So it is all about collecting data on intertidal species. So everything that we see down on the shore that falls in our quadrats, we are surveying and we are recording. So we're recording things like the abundance of things, the distribution of stuff, and the presence and the absence of things. So it's all about collecting that data about them species to record them in the Shoresearch app, which we'll come on to a little bit later. It's all about public engagement too. So that's another big part of what we do with the Shoresearch project, which is huge. And it's about raising awareness and the importance of intertidal areas and the importance of marine protected areas. So why do we do it? So long-term monitoring, so species abundant and distribution, so we can really build up that database of what species are where and how they're distributed around Cornwall. So you'll see certain species are quite abundant on certain shores, and then other species are a lot more abundant on different shores. It all depends on lots of the habitat types. So detect changes. So the health of the habitat we look at quite a lot. So how well the habitat is doing, how it's surviving, what is going really well and what's not going really well. Changes due to climate change. So a lot of climate indicator species you see from time to time. So there will be species that will be more abundant in certain areas due to warming waters and climate change and things. So that's something really, really cool to start recording and putting on the app. And non-native species as well. So there's we haven't had too many actually records, but Pacific oysters and things that we get down there that are non-native species. I know they're not too much of an issue around them, but it's the non-native ones that need recording just as much as the native species, which is really, really, really cool to see. And it's about monitoring the MPAs as well.
Obviously, nice introduction from Ben about why we do Shoresearch. It's a brilliant, fun project. It's well, very rewarding way of learning about your shores and then helping to our data set that we've been building up now for nearly 10 years. And we've started to really see that power of that data in terms of monitoring change. So we're finding a lot less warm water species, cold water species on our shores, more warm water species. Yes, as Ben said. So another important thing to point out is that Shoresearch is really set up for marine groups. And there are not only in Cornwall, there are marine groups all over the UK collecting data through Shoresearch. The app that we've developed is really for groups. It's not for individuals. So to get involved in Shoresearch, you can get the app on your phone, but really we only give logins to marine groups. Just so you know, so you need to, once you're trained, you need to find a local marine group that you can carry out Shoresearch with. Okay, and the main, there's several different methodologies for Shoresearch. And the one that we've been using a lot lately, and the one that gives us really comparable, useful long-term data sets, are quadrat surveys. And these really target rocky shore areas. And we use a 50 centimetre squared quadrat. And the data we're getting is really replicable, and allow the fact that we're using the same methodology and the same areas means that we can really compare and learn about what's happening on our shores really well. It is really fun just going for the rock pool and looking at, what you find and stuff like that, and recording a species list. And that is something that we also do, but we will usually do that as a reward at the end of carrying out some quadrat surveys. Okay, so the shore is divided into different vertical zones, and I'm sure everyone in the room probably knows this already, but the reason for that is the amount of time that the shore is exposed to the air. So obviously the upper shore gets exposed to the air for a lot longer than the lower shore. As the tides come in and out, the lower shore is covered by water for a lot longer, and what you end up with is a real distribution of different species going down the shore, forming these zonations. And it's a bit of an art form, but you can start to get get really, after doing this for a little while, you can really see the difference between the upper shore, the mid shore, and the low shore in terms of species. On the slide there, there's just a few species that are useful. In fact, you build up a picture with a lot more, and it seems to be quite different depending on the shores. So it's something you learn as you go along. But yeah, the ones at the top are ones that don't mind being dried out. So a good example there is the channel rack. That's a seaweed that actually dies if it's underwater for too long. And then species like kelp, they will dry out if they're exposed to the air for too long. So they're only found down on the lower shore. Okay, so when we're doing our surveys, we're basically placing our quadrats in random positions within each zone. So we'll ask for a minimum of 5 quadrats on the high shore, 5 quadrats on the mid shore, and 5 quadrats on the low shore. And to work out where to place the quadrats, we've got a bit more sciencey than back in the day. I remember when I was doing this. When I was studying marine biology, you used to just chuck quadrat, didn't you, over your shoulder randomly, but except it wasn't that random because it always sort of ended up where you wanted it to go. So now we've come up with this new method where we actually take a tape measure from the very top of the shore to the very bottom of the shore, and we come up with a set pairs of random numbers. The first number telling you how far down the tape to go, and the second number telling you how far across the shore away from the tape to go. So I tend to always, because I'm left-handed, I always go down the shore and then turn left. So it really doesn't matter, but what it's doing is it's meaning that you end up following a coordinate that places a quadrat in a totally random place. And when you get there, once you've placed your quadrat, you then record the substrate, so the rocks or the sand or the gravel or whatever it lands on, and then you go on to record the species. Now, a quick point: if it lands in a rock pool, rock pools are actually not what you want to be recording, and the reason for that is because in a rock pool, firstly, the creatures will just swim away. And secondly, you're looking at quite a different habitat to the open rock, because in a rock pool you've got water that's held there for a lot longer, and you find there's a lot more low tide sort of species in rock pools. So to get really good data, we actually avoid rock pools, and we say you can't have more than 25% of the quadrat with water. So yeah, so that's how we do it. We have to prep before we go with a load of random numbers, although actually now on your phone you can easily just ask Google for some random numbers between X and Y, and create your paired coordinates. Okay, as I said, another method of shore search is what we call a walkover, and this involves filling in a different form on the app, and we'll do this usually at the end. Equally, though, if you're working with a marine group that wants to do a public engagement session down on the shore, you can just do a walkover survey. It allows you to collect a species list, but what it doesn't really do is tell you the quantity of species, and it certainly doesn't give you comparative data for monitoring real change in terms of the common species. It's good for picking out rare things. But yeah, the walkover survey is kind of our reward really at the end, usually. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Ben now. He's going to talk us through using the Shoresearch app. So shall I just keep my slides up and press each one for you, Ben, rather than doing that switch again, because I'm scared I won't get mine back up. What do you think?
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, I'll just tell you next slide.
Yeah, cool. Okay, off you
Right,
go.
so using the app. So once your group, whoever you're with, has downloaded the Shoresearch app and you've got your login details and stuff for your marine group, you'll go to select survey at the bottom with that little blue square where it says survey with the crab in. And then it will come up quadrat surveys. And then it will come up with these ones on the right that say timed species, walkover, box core, or quadrat biodiversity. So you want quadrat biodiversity. Next slide, Matt. Thank you. And then you'll be prompted with number 1 that will say lead or volunteer. So if you're the lead, so the first person to do it, if there's like 3 different groups, you have like one group will be the lead, and there'll be where all the data goes into that one. And then if two other groups click on volunteer, they'll be prompted with like a little QR, and then you scan the QR, and then all the data all three groups are collecting will go into that one lead survey. So, and then you start putting in some of the stuff that you need to. So you'll put in site survey name, where it says there, the tide height, the time of low water, and then the lead and the number of participants, the weather conditions, and then the number of quadrats you're doing. And then you will go on to 3, and you'll take a picture of the place that you'll be actually surveying. So where your quadrat lays, you'll take a picture of that, and then that will be your point of reference. And then 4, you'll be you have to click on the little kind of like target thing in the corner that will pinpoint your exact location of where you are on the shore. So it is a bit temperamental sometimes, but if you keep clicking it, it will give you that red dot, and it will pick up exactly where you are on the shore. So next slide, please, Matt. So starting a survey, so if you're a volunteer. So I've actually already covered this bit, actually, haven't I? So again, yeah, you select volunteer, and then you'll be prompted with that little QR, and then you'll scan the QR with a camera on your other device that you're using for the other group, and then you'll go in to that survey. So yeah, I pretty much covered that. So next slide, please, Matt. Thank you. And then new quadrats. So you're going to location and put in the location of where you are, wherever it may be, say, I don't know, Trevornance Cove. And then you've already done the start and end time should already be there. The recorders will already be there. And then you can select your experience, whatever level of experience you feel like you are. And then you go down into the substrate type. So if it's like bedrock, if it's large boulders, medium boulders, small boulders, things like that. And then standing water. So like Matt said, if it's more than 25% of standing water, you would flip the quadrat, and then to whatever way, I don't know if it was flipped forward or backwards, wherever there isn't standing water. And then any comments that you want to put in at the bottom, say, I don't know, if you flipped it, you could put in the comments, quadrat flipped due to more than 25% standing water. And then on 2, you start putting in what the substrate type is. So it could be 100% bedrock, or it could be 25% bedrock, but it's all got to add up to 100%. So if you've got 75% bedrock, then you've got like 20% very large boulders, and then 5% large boulders. So as long as all of what you're surveying in there comes to 100% on the substrate, it's good. But if you don't come to 100%, it will prompt you, and it will tell you haven't come up to 100%. So you need to go back and look exactly what the substrate types are. And then 3, so yeah, you can slide the percentage. You can either type it in there where it's got the 80 and it's pointing to, or you can do the slide either way. So either way you want to do it is absolutely fine. So next slide, please, Matt.
It's it up for you as well, doesn't it, Ben? Which is a nice feature. So actually you add in different percentages.
You're on mute, Matt.
No, it's us that's on mute.
Oh.
Yeah, it adds it up for you. Yeah, luckily. Right, next slide. Okay, so this is me now.
So next is adding species. So this is once you've done all the kind of the boring stuff, then it gets to the cool stuff where you can start actually adding the species that you're seeing. So you will go number 1. So you start with canopy species. So is it in the top layer, or is it in the underneath seaweeds and things? And then you can, and then what do you go to next? Then you do things like counts. So counts would be things like individual species, like limpets, for example, or any other kind of things like, I don't know, if you saw a crab in there, for example, if it was staying still, you count them rather than a cover. So all the cover stuff is pretty much all seaweeds, barnacles, and there's a few other things that I forgot that's actually a percentage cover. But so individual species accounts, larger seaweeds and things is percentage cover. So once you've got that, and then you can go down and take a picture of exactly what you're seeing. So the clearer pictures, the better, because then it makes it so much easier to actually ID what we've been looking at. Even if you don't know what the species is, you can put in uncertain ID. If you think, okay, brown seaweed, and you just put in uncertain ID, as long as you've got a good, clear picture, we'll be able to see it on the portal of exactly what you've recorded. Next slide, please, Matt. Fantastic. So yeah, adding species. So if it's a percentage cover, encrusting species close together, things like barnacles, seaweeds, sponges, bryozoans, sea squirts, keel worms, and mussels are all percentage covers. So if they're covering, I don't know, 5 squares of your quadrat, that would be 5% of that quadrat makes up barnacles, for example. And then counts are all other species, including like snails, crabs, anemones, and small spiral worms and things. So, but be careful with common names, for example, like cushion starfish and serrated rack always really annoys me because I like calling it serrated rack, but it comes up as toothed rack on the app. So if you're putting in serrated rack and thinking, why is it not coming up? Try toothed rack and try names like that. So it's easy to ID them. And then, yeah, it's just putting in that species name. If you're not sure what the species name is, it's absolutely fine as long as you're putting in the species and the picture. It's absolutely fine, no worries. So yeah, unknown IDs. So if you're in any doubt, just record what the family is. Like I said, so if you don't know what it is, I have no idea what that is. As long as you've got the basic family name, you're going to be fine. So as long as you've got that clear picture and what you generally think it is, so like brown seaweed or red seaweed or whatever, that's absolutely fine. So yeah, you can share stuff on Facebook pages if you don't know what some certain species are. You can always have an ID book to hand, which is really, really helpful. That's cool to look up some of the more challenging seaweeds if you want to start looking what they are. And again, always take a photo and upload it to the app, and then we'll be able to ID it if you're unsure. Next slide, please, Matt.
Sorry to butt in, Ben. Can you hear me all right? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? No, you can, Gemma.
Sorry, Matt, it's because we're on adjacent laptops. So when you start talking, we've just got to unmute a laptop.
So yeah, another point as well to make is I see people's faces in the audience and they're all like looking at this thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to remember all of this. And so I think it's really important just to say that you don't need to remember all of this. This is like a guide. And obviously when you go along one of these surveys, if you're not an expert on species ID, it doesn't matter because you will be with experts on species ID and you'll sort of build it up. And we wanted to put enough into this training thing, training sessions aside that, it really gives people a little starting point. Yeah, nice one. But I mean, it's really important. You are going to find things sometimes that you can't identify to a species level. And what we always say is don't jump to a conclusion. Don't sort of don't assume. If you're not sure, it's far better to admit that, and not just to say, oh, I'm not exactly sure. It looks like this, but I'm not exactly sure. So I'm just going to call it green seaweed. That is far better, really. And from your photo, we'll be able to help. But generally, you're in a group amongst you come to a decision, don't you? And now we've all got Google on our phones. Even if you haven't brought your guidebook with you, you can look it up on your phone, and that's useful as well. So quite honestly, yeah, the species ID is getting easier. Anyway, right, I'll go to the next slide.
Matt, your sound has gone a bit jumpy. It's cutting out quite a lot.
Oh no. Yeah, I'm having technical problems tonight, eh? Not sure why that would be. Maybe my Wi-Fi. Can you hear me okay now? Really?
For me in here, it's better than it was, but it's not very smooth.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll hand over to Ben then for this bit, because I think this is Ben's bit.
Matt, if you try turning your camera off so it's not.
Yeah.
That might make it better. Thanks, Jeanette.
Yeah, and Ben, you can do this slide then.
Better.
Thank you very much. So after the survey has been done, you can upload it to the data portal. So we advise waiting until you've got strong Wi-Fi connection until you try uploading it, because some beaches won't upload full stop. So, but it's cool as long as you don't, you're waiting until you've got stronger Wi-Fi. Nothing's going to get lost or anything. So don't worry. You can leave the shore and then you can go to somewhere that's got a lot stronger Wi-Fi signal and then click upload. So once you have finished the survey, it will prompt you and say finish, and then it will go to upload, won't it? Yes, it will. Just refreshing myself because I've forgotten for a while. So that's it's very straightforward of how to do. But again, when you come to the practical sessions, me, Jem, and Matt can show you all exactly how it's done. So don't feel like you're thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to get this. We'll talk you all through it when we do practical sessions down the shore. Next slide, please, Matt.
So all the data then ends up on the data portal, and there's a little picture that just shows you the data portal, and any marine groups that are doing this, we can actually train them to go and check their data. We'll be doing an element of that as well when we in the office, but yeah, that's where it all ends up. So the data portal is where the sends the data.
Okay, essentially, I'm here to go through some of the boring bits. Ben's spoken about how to use the app and the data portal a little bit. Matt's spoken about quadrat surveys and actually being on the shore. But we are all about keeping everybody safe on the intertidal zone in that area between the land and the sea. We are working on a very exposed area. It's an ever-changing environment, but Shoresearch is designed to be safe, enjoyable, and accessible as possible, even in this really dynamic environment. So this section is not about putting people off. It's about helping everybody get home safely after having a great experience and collecting some really valuable data. I'm going to go through our risk assessment, and half of this is for my peace of mind, to know that when you're out on the shore, you've heard it at least once. If you're at an event with your local marine conservation group, warning and the guidance and risk assessments. And I know there are some people on this call who will be leading these surveys for their marine conservation groups. Remember that this is under the Maroops public liability insurance. However, this template that I'm about to go through will be used and adapted, can be used and adapted as necessary, and it is in Assemble. If you don't know what that is, don't worry, I'm going to talk about it towards the end of the session. Some key things we want to make sure we've got covered. We're looking at where we're going to be, a couple of different methods of pinning down that location, whether it's a Google Maps link or a What 3 Words. What 3 Words is useful for emergency services, should it come to one of those situations. You should have a first aid kit on the shore with a leader, with a group leader. We encourage that all group leaders are first aiders. I'm aware that this section is more about leading a survey, and so is much more relevant to those leaders in the marine groups. Even if you're attending, it's always good to know who the first aider is and where that first aid kit is. A really useful thing is to know where your nearest defib is and the nearest minor injuries or A&E unit. It's much easier to have that sort of information at hand rather than trying to scrounge for it in an area with barely any signal down on the low shore. We want to know who is on the survey and how many people are going to be on the survey. And then our risk assessments are always going to include a little bit about the process, a little bit about what's required, what we're going to wear, And it's useful to have welfare facilities nearby. Obviously not essential, but having that in your risk assessment, really helps that process of taking a medium risk activity to a low risk. This is also where we're going to put in our low tide time and height. We're not going to dwell too long on this. I know health and safety is quite a dry subject for everyone. I'm going to try and nail the most important parts. A couple of the hazards. We're starting with general litter and waste. Look out for those sharp edges. Don't touch dead animals. Tell someone if you've had an injury or if you need a first aid kit. There might be other things around. Industrial waste, we all know that lots of different things wash up on our shores. So we're going to avoid handling anything hazardous on a shore search. Let your event leader know. We can move the group away from it. We can bring the appropriate people to deal with that problem. Obviously, really important, getting cut off by the tide and waves. We want to take as many safety precautions as possible. We're going to be checking for swells, checking for tidal surge. A really good practice is to set an alarm on your phone at the low tide time so that you know if you're really engrossed in a crevice on the low shore, that alarm goes off and you're re-alerted to the idea that there is a hazard and it's on its way to you. That tends to be a good turnaround point to go and check out stuff back on the upper shore again. Interactions with plants and sea creatures is the bottom one on this section. We're thinking about the seashore code here. We don't really want to be touching these animals. Some of them sting, some of them will make your fingers tingle. It's a emergency response for these animals sometimes. So as much as it might harm us, or it might just feel a bit funny, it could be the be all and end all for those animals. Your first aiders should know how to deal with some of these problems, but it's the best method of risk aversion is to prevent the risk entirely and just keep our little mittens away from poking snake hawks and enemies because it feels funny on your fingers. Report any bites and stings though, please. Very mobile habitat. We're under cliffs. It's going to be slippery. If it's green, it's mean is a really good thing to go on. So that green seaweed that coats the rocks like slime, we want to be really careful on those. And that is where one of our main conditions is that we do not shore search in barefoot or flip-flops. It's just too risky, and you're not as mobile. If someone has seen a really colourful sea slug 200 meters away from you, that animal is going to be back in the water having a cup of tea before you're able to scramble across the shore to get there. Other things on there, falling objects. There are definitely areas around the coast that you might want to investigate through shore search. Just please be aware, especially in those upper shore zones, of what's going to be coming from above you. As well as the tide chasing you in, we might have coastal erosion coming from the other side. So we are, remember, talking about a very extreme environment. Slips, trips and falls is one that I want to mention in a bit more detail. We've spoken about no bare feet. This could also be a good point to mention a buddy system. There are definitely some areas of the intertidal that have huge gullies. I know Trevornant's Cove down at St Agnes, it's quite a big jutting out structure, and you could be in a gully on your own with no one around and something happen. We want to avoid that at all costs. So on shores like that, where you can't see everybody in the group around you, let's make sure we're in a buddy pair or a buddy three. And plus, this is a group activity. Shore search is more fun when you can throw off over what you're seeing and share your experience. Weather is obviously a main point, so I'm going to skip it a little bit. We're going to check the weather before the event, the day of the event, during the event. When we're walking there, we're going to be dynamically risk assessing everything around us. And I think our main point is, if it doesn't look safe, if you hesitate, it's just not worth it. So check the forecasts, take drinking water with you if it's hot. We want to wear suitable clothing. All of that sort of stuff comes into our weather risk hazard. And then blow and sand there. We're hopefully going to be on a rocky shore, so it's maybe a little bit less of an issue, but definitely one to be aware of when walking to and from site. So if those of you that know me on this call, I never shore search in anything apart from shorts, because I normally end up, kneeling in a rock pool, sat in a rock pool, halfway in the sea. Should have bought my snorkel, really. I'm get a bit addicted to it. So drowning is in our hazards, even though we'd like to say everyone to stay on the shore. What do they say? You can drown in a puddle. Our leaders are first aiders, and we're going to be calling 999 and asking for the Coast Guard in the event of a drowning. Carrying on, we've already spoken about the harshness and remoteness of some of these locations. So we might do a site recce, for example, before we take a group of 30 people down there. We're going to check out mobile signal. If not, where's the closest it's going to be? How long is it going to take someone to walk from the low shore up to somewhere with phone signal, and maybe what could be done to mitigate that? We're going to park as close as we can. We're going to check in and check out with someone who's remaining in that mobile phone signal. And again, working with in more than a pair. We're in a group situation here, so that should be good. Avian flu. We are still seeing avian flu around the coast. So at this point, please stay away from dead or sick birds and call the Marine Strandings Network hotline. I'll post the number of that somewhere, maybe in the chat. There are volunteers that are trained to deal with dead and stranded marine animals, and Shoresearch is not quite the place for it. So ring the hotline and get one of those volunteers to come out instead. Biological hazards. We're going to be washing our hands afterwards before we eat anything. We've got cuts and scrapes. We've got a first aider, just making you aware of that one. And then again, the same with lone working there. We've spoken about it quite a bit, and a buddy system. Manual handling. We're going to remember our back straight, knees bent, rah, rah, rah. Let's not cause any back pain on Shoresearch. You tend to find that you get swept away for hours in a weird curly shaped spine, and then you kind of stand up and stretch out. And I mean, Matt's been the latest victim of back pain from Shoresearch, so we understand it. We have it. We're the least good. We're the worst at trying to tell you not to. But please try and follow some manual handling rules. Lift boulders in pairs if you think there's going to be something cool under there. Don't risk carrying something too heavy. Aggression from other people is just something we add on to the rest of to the end of our risk assessments. We are in a public place. You do get people or tourists coming up to you and asking about Shoresearch, but where we'd hope there'd be no aggression, you never know. So that's in our risk assessment as a potential hazard. A really big thing I would like to emphasize is that this is a template, and there may be things that are site specific to the location you're going. For example, one of my favorite places to Shoresearch is Prisk Cove on the Helford. But I'm very aware that access to Prisk is directly through farmland. So when I'm surveying down at Prisk, I will have interactions with livestock on my risk assessment. So when you're preparing these as an event leader or giving your briefing, we're going to make sure that we're thinking about how we're accessing the site, the actual survey, and then how it's going to get us home again, whether that's along coast path or through farmland. Again, this is a template. Our risk assessments, our insurance requires us to have a double approval system. Again, that is related to your insurance as a local marine conservation group. So that was a lot of health and safety. Essentially, we want to plan ahead, check the weather and tides, wear the right clothes, no flip-flops to be seen, and in an emergency, we're going to call 999 and ask for the Coast Guard, and if it doesn't feel safe, don't do it. I'm now going to pass on to Matt. We're going to try and do our re-sharing screens. Thank you for listening to me, and enjoy the species ID section.
Just an introduction to some of the common animals and plants that you're going to find in your quadrat surveys. So some of this is quite, some of these species are very common, they'll be very familiar to you. But there's also different sort of small things and some surprises as well within our quadrats. So we wanted to introduce you to these. So we're going to start with crustacean. Barnacles are actually related to shrimps and crabs. But they swim around for a bit, and then when they find a nice surface to stick onto, they cement themselves permanently to the rocks or the driftwood or whatever it is they live on. So barnacles can be very, very common, and it's very hard to work out the coverage of barnacles really accurately. But generally, yeah, we get an estimate of percentage cover. That's what we'd record them. They're several small species, and if you're really interested in barnacles, particularly, it is a great subject. There's so much to learn about barnacles, so many different types. What we say is, go ahead and study and swat up on them. But when it comes to a quadrat survey, we actually find it can be really overcomplicating things. If within a quadrat we find there's a large number of different species, it becomes really hard to work out what percentage each species takes up accurately. A few years ago, we actually started doing quadrat photographic quadrants. These are 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters, and on that picture there, each red dot or each color dot is an individual, and the different colors represent different species. So you can see what look like the same are actually loads of different species. So for the purposes of Shoresearch quadrat surveying, we don't really go there with barnacles. We just record them as barnacle rather than to species level, and we always record them as a percent cover. So that involves they're scattered all over the structure, but let's try and imagine if you could switch them in together, how much of the quadrat would it cover? So yeah, so that's the barnacles. Now we've also got some quite large barnacles on the shores, and these have become much more common in recent years. They're a warm water species, the volcano barnacle. So it's called Balanus perforatus, can get to about 2 centimeters tall. And with these, sometimes, if you've only got a couple in your quadrat or a small number, you're tempted just to count them. But you have to resist the temptation, because the rule is, if it's a barnacle, you record it as percentage cover. Okay, so moving on now, we've got limpets, very familiar to us all, I'm sure. Now, some of you might have got into limpets and actually you've seen realise there are several different species of limpet. The difficulty in identifying them makes it really hard for most people to identify them visually without actually kicking them off the rock. And obviously, if you've got a quadrat with sort of 50 barnacle limpets in there, you're not going to be able to kick them all off the rock to check them, and it would be pretty cruel. Because the first time you kick one, you might get it by surprise and it might come off. But if you don't actually get it off, you've got to kick it multiple times, and it just turns into sort of wildlife abuse. So we basically leave the limpets where they are, and we just record them as a limpet. And so, yeah, the common limpet, the black-footed limpet, all of these look very similar, and the China limpet. Sometimes you get to see those scratchy marks on a soft rock. So I don't know if you can see the picture in the middle there. That's actually a track left by a limpet that's been scraping algae off the rock with its radula, which is a really rough tooth, like a raspy tongue. And amazing, they're so strong. They're actually stronger than steel, and they can make dents into the rock if the rock's not that hard. And another interesting thing about limpets is they always return to exactly the same spot every time the tide goes out. And over generations of them doing that, they create a limpet scar. You can see in the picture there a large limpet scar that has been occupied by a very big limpet. The limpet's clearly died, and now there's a little one sort of just still growing into the scar. So yeah, so that's the limpets. We also we record the limpets on the Shoresearch chat. You can write in limpet, you can write on patella, which is the scientist.
So we've also got a few other species of very small limpet, and some of these are much easier to identify than the ordinary sort of shaped limpets. So in this picture here, you can see the keyhole limpet, which is a really cool one. It actually breathes through a hole in the top of its shell. We've got the blue-rayed limpet, which is usually seen on seaweeds, but that is a rare photo of some stuck on a rock. We've got the pink-rayed limpets or tortoiseshell limpets and slipper limpets, which are a non-native species. So there's quite a few other limpet species. And here's the blue-ray limpets for you, just growing on some kelp and looking absolutely beautiful. So they're under 1 centimetre long. And if you've never seen one, it absolutely blows you away the first time you see them. They're amazing. Is my sound okay now, Gemma?
Yeah, it's really good. 100 times better.
Oh, good. Gosh, should have started with this. Okay, sorry, folks. Now, so the next group of animals to talk about are mussels. So mussels are very familiar to most people. The blue mussels you find growing on the rocks. We've actually got, though, 2 species, and they're really hard to separate. So we've got Mytilus galloprovincialis and Mytilus edulis. And because they're so tricky, it's to do with the shape of the shell. It's very hard to see without actually pulling them off the rocks. So again, a bit like the limpet, we just record them as mussels or Mytilus. And in the picture there, you can see sometimes you get albino mussels, but generally they're blue. And we often see large numbers settling on the rocks, particularly in the early summer. And you can see here in that photo, thousands of them just settling. So how do you record them? Percent cover. So because they cover large areas of the shore, we always do it as percent cover. Yeah, if your quadrat was on top of a dense mussel bed, you'd be very grateful that you just estimate the percent cover. Okay, so now we're moving on to the seaweeds, and seaweeds make up a really important part of our quadrat surveys. They're really showing us a lot about changes on the shore. And all of these species, although they're common, are all ecologically really important. So the first one there that I mentioned earlier, channeled wrack, this is the species that doesn't live anywhere else except for on the very top of the shore. And in fact, it's only found in the spray zone, really, the splash zone on the top of the shore. So that's one to look out for. It only grows to about 5 centimeters in length, and it's called channeled wrack because it curls itself around to a bit like a marram grass leaf does, which is a method of retaining moisture. Okay, so the next species on the slide there is spiral wrack, and this is a bit like bladder wrack, but it doesn't have floats, and instead it's twisted. And spiral wrack again prefers the upper shore, and it's normally found in quite a small zone. And this is a species that's becoming more and more rare in Cornish shores. So well worth keeping a lookout for. And they all the wrack family, that's the bladder wrack, the spiral wrack, the serrated wrack, they are quite similar looking. So really do look close at them and don't jump to a conclusion on those. And then finally, we've got egg wrack. Now, this one is it's often found quite high up the shore, but only in quite sheltered places does it really dominate a shore. And this egg wrack has an egg-shaped float. And you can see in the picture quite a large float that grows right in the center of the frond. Okay, so moving on now. Yep, you record them as percent cover. Moving further down the shore, we're going to find egg wrack again because egg wrack covers quite a large, upper and low and mid shore. But then we start to find bladder wrack, and the difference between the egg wrack and the bladder wrack is that the bladder wrack has smaller, rounder floats that pop really nicely, and you can see a midrib that runs between the floats. So the floats are kind of in pairs with a midrib in between them, whereas the egg wrack, the float is larger, doesn't pop very easily, and it's in the center of the frond. Okay, then the next species on the slide here is serrated rack. Oh, do you remember? I actually should relabel that, because on the app you only get one common name for each species on the app, and the species list on our app comes from the Natural History Museum, from the UK Species Inventory. And when they allocate, when they decide the official name for a species, the only one you can really trust is a scientific name. They then assign it a common name. But what you've got to remember is that all around the country there are hundreds of different common names. So common names quite often are frustrating. And in the case of serrated rack, if you search for that, you won't get anything. You have to write toothed rack. So you have, on the app, you have to kind of you have to know the right common name, which is a bit of a pain, but that's how it's set up. To be more accurate, it's a lot easier just to type in the scientific name. And you don't have to type in the whole long name. You just type in the first couple of letters and then a space and then the first couple of letters of the second part of the name, and it will find it for you. Anyway, that's a bit of an aside. So again, yeah, seaweeds, always percentage cover to record them. Okay, now we've got a few of the brown seaweeds we get in rock pools. I wanted to include these because they're really pretty, and a species we're starting to see a lot more frequently now. Tuning forkweed, a brown seaweed, gets really dense and it's really lovely, this orange, like almost goldy sort of color in our pools. Okay, now on the lower shore, we start to see a different set of seaweeds. And so we're still finding lots of serrated or toothed rack, but we start to get crazy things like thongweed. And thongweed starts its life looking like this, like a little mushroom or even a button shape attached to the shore. And it grows elongated reproductive stalks. So here's a very young thongweed, kind of looks bizarre, like a coral almost. These are only about half a centimeter across, these little buttons. And then eventually it forms that sort of mushroom shape, and then these long fronds form. So in the spring you start to see them. They'll only be sort of 50 centimeters max in the start of the spring, and then by the summer they'll be really long. They'll be like 1.5 meters long, and that forms a really dense zone on the shore. And then further down the shore we come into the kelps. So we've got oarweed, which has got a very flexible stipe that's very bendy. So when the tide goes out, it flops down. But then if you start to see kelp sticking up like this with the stipe really standing upright, then you're looking at forest kelp, which is the species that forms big kelp forests. If you were to swim a bit further out away from that low shore on the spring tide. And yeah, here we've got a couple more pictures just to highlight that. So with kelps and brown seaweeds, again, it's all percent cover. And the final picture there, that was down at Polzeath on Shoresearch Week in 2016. That was the biggest low tide I've ever seen down there. And you can see the whole of a kelp forest just completely exposed. That's amazing. And what was really rare that day was the swell, because it's a very wavy place. There was no swell and it was high pressure. So the tide went out by quite a few extra meters. So pretty spectacular. And you can see stuff growing all over the kelp. That's dulse. That's a red seaweed that we're going to be talking about in a bit. So yeah, pretty amazing. All right, so brown seaweeds. So we also have a few different interesting brown seaweeds you get in pools and on the lower shore. And this has got to be the craziest seaweed you'll ever come across. It's called rainbow rack. And it's actually a brown seaweed, but you wouldn't believe it. If you were to look at it, when it's reflecting the sun's rays back at you, it just looks this crazy sort of iridescent blue color. But if you were to lift that out of the water, it turns brown. And rainbow rack is a really long-lived seaweed. It's really tough, and so it'll be growing for, 5-10 years in the same place, and you'll get a whole host of organisms living in it. So it's been compared or been sort of described as the oak tree of the rock pool. And so that photo on the bottom left just shows you some sort of really old growth of rainbow rack with purple sea squirts all over it and pinky coloured fluffy bunches of sea squirts. You'll find anemones in there. You'll find all kinds of animals living within them. So they're really important. And again, yep, percentage cover because it's a seaweed. Okay, then we've got a few other low shore brown seaweeds that I wanted to mention. And this one on the right there, the really goldy coloured one with little tiny floats, is one that's been getting a lot of attention. It's a non-native species called Sargassum muticum, or wireweed. When it first arrived in the 1980s into the UK, people really freaked out. It's actually a Pacific species. First, it's quite common around the coast of Japan, and they were really worried it was going to completely wipe out and smother all life on our shores. But actually, it is very common, but it actually doesn't seem to be causing any negative impacts, or at least no measurable negative impacts. It looks quite frightening sometimes. In the middle of summer, you will see pools completely full of it. And at one point, there were people saying, can't we get rid of it by ripping it up? And the danger of doing that is that the picture on the left is actually a native species, which looks very, very similar. And that's called bushy rack Cystocera baccata. And the way you can tell the two apart is if you pick up a bit of wireweed and hold it, it hangs down like washing hanging on a line is how someone described it. And there's Jason just modelling it for us now in that picture. So yeah, two species that are often confused, and one is a native and one is a non-native. So because they're so similar, we just leave them be. And we've actually found that the non-native one now has a lot of other organisms growing in it. Little creatures like to hide in there. Okay, so moving on, we're going to talk about green seaweeds, and we've got several types of green seaweeds in our rock pools. And here's just a few of them. We've got Cladophora, we've got velvet fingers, but definitely the most common group are the ulvas. And on the Shoresearch app, you record ulva as ulvales, which is the family. Now, we used to have different names for all these seaweeds in the pictures. The middle one, we used to call it sea lettuce, and the one on the left, we used to call it gutweed. The one on the right, I think that's gutweed as well. But we've found out, and recently from not me personally, but phycologists, those are people who study seaweeds, have proven that they're actually all the same species, but they grow in different forms with different environments. So quite interesting. So we just record them all now as ulva or ulvalas. And we've called them, how do you reckon we record them? Percentage cover. You knew that. Okay, so a few of the red seaweeds now. In the middle pictures there, we've got some pinky stuff growing on the rocks. And a lot of people don't realise, but those are actually, they look like coral, but those are actually coralline crusts of red seaweed. And they form these really hard structures that are really important. Some of you might have heard of merle. Well, merle is very similar to this. And in our rock pools, we get really dense sort of pink sort of layers on the rocks. I'm sure you've probably seen. So yeah, we record them as coralline crusts. We've got a few other ones here. We've got this tiny species called Catanella, very common in the upper shores on our quadrat surveys. And then we've got pepper dulse, and pepper dulse is the one that I often get volunteers to taste because I like watching people's faces when they eat it, because it is a surprise. If you've ever tried it, it just gives you that sort of garlicky hit. And if you eat too much of it, it makes you ill. So I wouldn't recommend that. I think Gemma and Ben were laughing when I mentioned that. I probably overfed them it. Oh, and it probably isn't in the risk assessment as well. Actually, I didn't. Gemma, you need to add that in. Okay, so the next one, red seaweeds on the rocks. So in recent years, we've been finding a huge increase in this really quite pretty red fluffy seaweed, and it's actually a non-native. It's called pom-pom weed, or Coelacanthus okamure. It's from Japan, and it's now becoming really, really dominant. Whether it will cause a problem, we don't know. So although it's non-native, we haven't classed it as invasive just yet, and that's that's because we haven't got any proof it's really causing problems. If you pick a little bit of it and you look at it up close, it's really thorny looking, as you can see in the picture of my fingertip there. So yeah, that's definitely one you're going to see. Creep horn, you might find loads of that at Loo on the shore. Irish moss. This is a beautiful seaweed with really bluey iridescent tips. And that's one that is very common on all shores. And false Irish moss is probably even more abundant and more ecologically important. It's a dark coloured seaweed, and it looks very similar to Irish moss, hence the name, but it has a more of a curved frond, and it has lots of little sort of lumps all over it, which gives it its other name, grape pip weed. Okay, so you would record them as percent cover. And then red seaweeds, there's loads of funky red seaweeds. And if you get into seaweed pressing, which is sort of a bit of a hobby of some of our volunteers now, because it's so much fun and it's becoming really popular, it's the red seaweeds that press really well. And there's just a little selection there. Bunny's ears is a really good name. Coxcomb, which is a really pretty one. Fanweed, grapeweed, and finally ceramium. Okay, and then we've also got a few red seaweeds that grow on other ones. So do you remember that picture of the kelp forest? That red stuff growing all over the frond, the stalks of the kelp. It was dulse, and dulse. This type of dulse actually really tastes nice. It's my favourite one to just munch on during a shore search survey. And then vertebrata lanosa. That one grows just on egg rack. So those are epiphytes. Okay, so we've probably done enough seaweeds. So what we're going to do now, everybody, is we're going to give you a 10-minute break.
Matt,
And
I'm gonna jump in. Can
yeah,
we go
and
through a
Gemma's
couple
going to
of
jump in.
questions?
What,
I've got
before
a
the
couple of
break?
yeah,
Oh
just a
yeah,
couple that
questions
have
that
been
are
in the
coming
chat
up.
already.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, good. Yeah.
So I'm just going to say them because they're now lost in the chat somewhere.
Yep.
So Luke asked right at the beginning, how do you decide what is the high, mid, and low shore when doing quadrats?
Yeah, so that's something that you have to sort of learn with a bit of experience and time. And I haven't got a hard and fast set of rules to give you right now, but each marine group gets to know their shore, and you'll I suppose you'll start to get a feel for it. I mean, the upper shore is always a bit more barren. The mid shore has that dominant sort of you start to see your bladder rack and your serrated rack, and it's just subtly different. And then the low shore, you start to get loads of red seaweeds. You often get sponges as well. That's quite a good indicator, isn't it, Ben? But yeah, no hard and fast rule.
Cool.
Yep.
Alice is asking, where does the shore search data go, and is it stored on an open source platform?
Yeah, so any marine group who gets an account for Shoresearch can go on and have a look at the data portal and look through all of the data. We don't sort of hand out, it isn't, I suppose you need an account to get on it, so it isn't completely open access. And our plan is, though, for the Shoresearch data, and there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes nationally, is soon it's all going to be available on the national NBN. So that's oh God, what does NBN stand for again? Keith
National
will tell me.
Biodiversity Network.
Yes, that's right. So yeah, but so eventually it'll be completely open source. At the moment, you need an account, and each marine group has one though. So yeah, we'd definitely encourage people to go on there and have a look through it and see if they can find trends. It is, yeah, you can press a button and it all just gets downloaded as a big Excel spreadsheet.
Cool. Jenny asks, is there a working definition of large or small boulders or pebbles or gravel?
Yep. Yeah, on the app it tells you when you click on the substrate and you press boulder, it will say it will tell you what size a boulder is and what size a cobble is and what size a pebble is. So it's really user friendly. I think we've got large boulders on there as well, haven't we, Ben? So a large boulder's bigger than your head. An ordinary boulder is between the size of your head and your fist. A cobble is size of your fist, etc. So it explains it on the app.
And I also have a like a workshop sheet that I'll post in the chat in a minute as well. There's a bit of a graphics version of it that I've made recently.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
And we've got a load of stuff to email at the end, haven't we, Gemma? We've got a crib sheet as well, which gives a lot of the rules on percentage, cover, and count, and also some sort of handy tips for making sure you can find what you want on the app.
Cool. Charlie's asking, is there a book or guide that we would recommend as a species ID guide?
There's lots of them. If for seaweeds, the best book is the Sea Search book of seaweeds of Britain and Ireland. The for general marine species, though, on the shore, the Collins Guide to the Seashore is still one of the best because it has just about everything in there, and it's particularly good for things like mollusks and crustaceans. And it has excellent drawings because quite often drawings are better than photos for showing the diagnostic features of things. Having said that, there's a great book by Steve Hatcher and Julie Hatcher and Steve Truella called rock pooling. What's it called? The Ultimate Guide to Rock Pooling. That's the one. But the Collins guides I think are really good.
Thanks, Matt. We've got two more. Do we want dead species?
No, so this is for recording ecology and stuff like that. And you often find that question comes up with when you find an empty shell in a quadrat. If you find an empty mollusk shell, snail shell, we won't record it. And the same goes with seaweeds. If you find a beautiful seaweed in your quadrat, but it's not attached to anything, it's just drifted into the quadrat, so we wouldn't record that because what we're looking at is what's actually growing there at this time, not what not things that have died or drifted.
Cool. And a quick one. Is it true that every native UK seaweed species is edible, or is it an old wives' tale?
It's definitely not true. There's one called Desmorestia, and there's several species of Desmorestia, and they all make you really quite not ill. They'll give you the shit of the runs. So unlike most seaweeds, they produce sulfuric acid as a method of getting rid of grazers. So yeah, sulfuric acid is not very good for you. No, I don't. I've never. That's one seaweed that I would never eat. It's Desmorestia. So be a bit careful. Yeah.
Cool.
When
I'm
it
going to
comes to
sneak one more
foraging
in.
for seaweeds.
Sorry.
Yep.
I'm going to sneak one more in from Sally. When recording the substrate, is it what is immediately apparent when you put the quadrat down, or should we lift any boulders to see underneath them when recording substrate?
What I generally do is I fill in the substrate bit quite sort of quickly and like from visually cursory job. But then once we've actually so you record the canopy, don't you? And you lift the seaweeds out of the quadrat so you can then look at the under canopy and you might have boulders. And if you've got to lift boulders, you might find stuff under those boulders. So you can always edit the substrate at the end. But I always, so I don't forget to record anything. I normally do it. I normally do a cursory job first, and I can always sort of fine tune it at the end. But generally, the methodology is really for rocky shores. So generally, quite a lot of our quadrats are 100% bedrock in most and a lot of shores. Yeah.
Perfect. And anyone that's asking about how to join local groups, I'll come on to that later. So wait in suspense.
Great. I thought you would, Gemma. Brilliant. So we're going to have a 10-minute break. Right. Well, welcome back, everybody. We're going to go through now a few more different groups of creatures and things you can find in your quadrats. And this group is one that's quite familiar, I expect, to a lot of us. The Cnidarians. So that's the family that includes the anemones, corals, hydroids, jellyfish, and stalk jellyfish. Stalk jellyfish are one that we love hunting when we're having our walkover at the end. They're normally found in pools attached to red seaweeds. And absolutely beautiful. They're like a little snowflake. I hadn't actually seen one until I started doing Shoresearch a few years ago, and now they're still my favourites. They're absolutely beautiful. But yeah, when it comes to hydroids, these are sort of generally small, stingy little things related to corals. And that one in the middle there, Dynamina, is probably the most common hydroid we find growing on seaweeds on the shore. And then the anemones. So the anemones are obviously quite a familiar animal to most people. And the snake-clox anemone is one that never retracts its tentacles, and it has this lovely iridescence. Although the color does vary, you get sort of more drab-looking ones, but the really fluorescent ones are fantastic. And there's a nice example in that picture. And then we've got the beadlet anemone, and the beadlet anemone is the sort of the most common one on the intertidal zone. It closes up completely to trap water, so it just looks like a little blob. And but as the tide comes in, they'll open up, and you'll see those tentacles, the stingy tentacles, and the mouth in the center. So with these, you would count, or if it's something like a hydroid, you would do an estimate, because you can't really with Dynamina, it's kind of hard to figure out, how many there are. They're joined together by little tendrils, and strictly speaking, each separate triangle on that stalk is a separate animal. So with them you would estimate, but with the anemones you would count them. Okay, so here's a few more cool anemones you can find in Cornish rock pools or on shores. Starting at the left, we've got the Dahlia anemone. This can be really large. It's usually in rock pools. When it closes up, the sort of the stem of the animal, if you like, the stalk is covered in these sticky lumps. So quite often it will have gravel or shells attached for protection. The one in the middle is the daisy anemone, and this one is often found in shallow pools that have sandy bottoms but rock just below the sand. And if you frighten them, they just disappear down into the sand. Absolutely beautiful, come in loads of different colors. They have this big flat surface on the top called the oral surface, because the mouth is there on the top in the middle, and very short little tentacles. And then finally, we've got the gem anemone. So when it's closed up, it actually looks a bit like a little sea urchin, the picture on the bottom there. But when it opens, it's quite different, and it's quite a small but very colourful species. So yeah, that's the anemones. Now we're going to move on now to a totally different phylum, the mollusks, and we're going to talk about lots of different sea snails. But the first one we're going to talk about is one that most people don't even know exists, and this is the small periwinkle. So some of you might have been shown them before, but very few people have realised they're there. If you look in amongst barnacles with a hand lens, you'll nearly always find them on any shore in Cornwall, and there are literally hundreds on the shore in each quadrat. Now, when it comes to recording these, it's one that, because it's an animal, it's a sort of solitary individual animal, all of the snails will count them. But with this species, it's impossible to do an accurate count. So you'll put down a number, but you'll estimate the number, and you'll quite often write that in the comments, just an estimate, because it is virtually impossible. I mean, you could do you could work it out, extrapolate by doing a count in a small square and on a gridded quadrat and multiply it up, but that's not particularly accurate, and I just don't think it really matters too much. So yeah, just do an estimate. But aren't they amazing? They're tiny. You can see they live inside an empty barnacle shell. Okay, now we've got the rough periwinkle. Sometimes a tiny one of these will get mistaken for a small periwinkle, but these can grow a bit bigger. They get up to about 1 centimeter across, or it says on the slide there, grows to 18 millimeters, so even bigger than I thought. And they come in loads of different colors, but they always have this rough, grooved shell, and that's how you can really tell them apart from the other periwinkles. And with those, we'll do a count. So all of these periwinkles are all vegetarians, by the way. They graze on algae. And this one is often found living on racks on the midshore. This is the flat periwinkle. And it's called flat periwinkle because the spire, so the twiddly bit on the side, is really flattened. And these come in a whole variety of colours. I love seeing all the different colours. The bright yellows are beautiful. But yeah, all manner of colours. And for these, we would count them. So yeah, they've got quite a tough sort of shell. Right, the next one is the big periwinkle. It's known as the edible or common periwinkle. Littorina, Littoria, and these are the ones that we used to eat with a pin when we were kids. And yeah, it's kind of an acquired taste. Don't eat them these days. And they're quite a chunky, big periwinkle with a really round shaped sort of shell and a round opening to the shell with a white edge on that opening. It's called the columella, which helps you identify it. And they're often found in large numbers, particularly on a shore where you've got fresh water coming down into an area of the shore. You get a huge accumulation of these. Okay, now we're going to move to a different family of, again, herbivorous snails. These are the top shells. And the top shells, we have several species. So this is found on mid to high shores, and it's a very large top shell, up to 30 millimeters, so 3 centimeters tall. And it has really white mother of pearl underneath. And you can see a little a bulge in the opening. So the opening of the shell is not circular. It has a little bulge on that picture of the one at the top. The bulge on the right hand side is what gives it the name tooth. It's a bit tenuous, but yeah, you got to imagine that's a tooth. And yeah, they are really common in Cornwall. However, they're a climate change indicator, and they're not really that common elsewhere in the UK, but their range is spreading as our seas warm up. Okay, the next one. This is a very common one on the midshore. This is the purple top shell or flat top shell. I personally think the best name for these is Scooby-Doo's, and that's one that Josh, one of our previous coordinators, gave it because it's lovely sort of purple and green colours. And when you look underneath one of these, there's a hole in the centre of the shell called an umbilicus, so a bit like a belly button. And that is one of the key defining features. If you see a belly, like an umbilicus, and these purple and green stripes, and and a flattened shell, you've got a flat top shell. And you record them as a count. Okay, now as you go further down the shore, you find a different species. Now, this one is quite different. It looks kind of tweed coloured. So it doesn't have purple and green stripes. It's just sort of greyish, sort of sensible looking top shell with these greyish stripes like tweed. And it has an umbilicus in some cases, which is a bit confusing, but yeah, really the colour is so different. And they're often in a little bit more tall and less flat than the flat top shell. So yeah, so you count those as well. Okay, now we're going to move away from the herbivores because this is a predator. This is the dog whelk, and it will drill a hole in its prey using specially modified radula and a tongue that releases acids and enzymes that weaken its prey. So it will actually drill through a limpet or a muscle easily and squirt in saliva full of enzymes that turns the insides into soup, and that's how they then suck out their dinner. But yeah, as you can see, they come in loads of different colours. They lay these eggs, these clusters of eggs in crevices, and these are very common on the midshore and upper shore all around Cornwall. And those again you would count. So yeah, a top predator. Now, sorry, we're back at the top shells. This one's a herbivore again, and this is a real whopper. This is a painted top shell. Absolutely beautiful, lovely sort of conical shaped shell. Often seen in caves and overhangs. Okay, so right, we're done the snails. We're going to talk now a bit about the sponges. So sponges are a very primitive animal. They've been around for millions of years, and they often are found on the low shore, or growing in crevices and under stones. And so we've got several species, and they can be quite hard to identify. But the ones on the slides here are fairly reliably easy. But occasionally you will come across ones that you just record as sponge. Now, if you touch them, they feel spongy. That's the most technical way of helping you tell if it's a sponge. We do, yeah. I know you get told never to touch things when you're learning to dive, etc. But when we're shore searching, we do use all of our senses I mean, I actually taste some of the seaweeds as I alluded earlier, but I don't normally eat many things. But yeah, generally, yeah, touching is allowed as well as looking at this. So if they feel spongy and water comes out, they're likely to be a sponge. And you record all sponges as percent cover. And on the slide there, we've got breadcrumb sponge, we've got compressed purse sponge, estuary sponge, and the one without a common name, Ophthalita papillosa. So yeah, that's a bit of a mouthful, but you don't have to remember that. Okay. Now we've got sea squirts. So sea squirts can quite often be confused with sponges, and in fact, there's a great book on squirts and sponges done by Shoresearch. But yeah, sea squirts, believe it or not, sponges are the most primitive organisms. Sea squirts are actually quite advanced. They're related to us. They're the earliest form of tunicate, of chordates. So their larvae swim around like little tadpoles and have a primitive notochord, which is like a spinal column. Anyway, when they get older, they just settle down and live a life very similar to that of a sponge, sucking water in, filtering it, and then blowing it out. And here we've got a few different examples. So you can have solitary sponges like the like the fluted sea squirt, which is just living on its own attached to a rock. Or you can have colonial ones, like the one at the top there, Morchellium, which is like a little cluster of lots of them joined together. And Clavellina, that's the light bulbs sea squirt. That one is a solitary one, but the one at the bottom is another colonial one, Didemnum. Now, there is one type of sea squirt that I absolutely love. I'm going to show you this in a minute. But yeah, sea squirts we always record as percent cover, by the way. And this is the one that I absolutely love. This is the Starocidian. So I've been collecting these photos. I've got so many of them. This is just a few, some of my personal faves. Kind of reminds me of 70s wallpaper. And what you're looking at there is a sort of a little organism. It will form a patch about a couple of inches across, stuck on a seaweed or on a rock. And what you've got is a colony there of sea squirts all joined together. They all suck water in through separate openings. They filter the water and then they pass it out through a shared hole in the center. So they're living arranged like the petals of a daisy, and absolutely beautiful. And as you can see, very varied in color. Okay, so now moving on, we've got another encrusting organism, group of organisms. These are bryozoans, sea mats. And what you've got here are many, many thousands of animals living in separate little cases, joined together on the shore. Quite a primitive organism, filter feeder, and several species there. We're seeing a lot more of this red ripple one at the moment, all around the Cornish coast. That's a non-native one, but very, very common. Under stones is this sort of pinky one, Oscarovia littoralis. And growing on seaweeds, we get the hairy sea mat and the plain sea mat, which grows on kelps. So those would also be recorded. And if you're wondering, how can you tell them apart from those tunicates? Well, the tunicates feel rubbery. So that's the sea squirts, these ones. They feel rubbery. But the sea mats feel quite rough to the texture, and they're not at all spongy. So that's how we can tell all three apart. Okay, and now we're moving on to something that's also very common in our intertidal zone quadrats, and these are calcareous worms. So several types here, and they form these little hard calcium tubes that they live inside. The keel worm is called that because it's often found on the keel of people's boats. They can, be really high. They can cover quite a high percentage of the rock in some places, particularly on boulders. And then spirorbids, these little tiny ones. These are found growing on seaweeds. There's one species on seaweeds called Spirorbis, and then the coralline spororbid worms that actually grow in amongst the pink coralline crusts. So how would you record these? You would estimate, you would do a count and estimate it because you're never going to count them accurately. There's so many on the rocks. Okay, now we've got some worms that actually create a habitat for themselves. So all of these species will bind sand together to create a tube that they live inside. The sand mason worm can actually create these huge tussocks on the shore. especially in sandy areas. But the honeycomb worms are the most amazing ones. They form these huge structures, and they're very common all around the North Cornish coast. But we're starting to see more and more of them on the South Coast, which is interesting. And whether they'll ever get to the point like they are in that top picture at Bude, where they form massive colonies, a metre or so across, I'm not sure. The sand has to be just right for that. And they seem to thrive around the coastline around Bude. There's a close-up of one. It has this weird sort of horseshoe arrangement of tentacles. When you get it under a microscope, if you pull one out of its tube, which is a bit mean, but I really wanted to see what they look like. So those will be percentage cover again. Okay, so that was a quick crash course on the things that are going to turn up in quadrats. And like I said, what happens after you've done your quadrats? And we don't, we never, by the way, we never believe in people giving people burnout and making them do, 12 quadrats all on their own. We always try and make sure that we're organized enough so that you only do about 5 quadrats. So that's about the limit. And then if you've timed it right, you've got about 45 minutes or half an hour before low tide, and you can go down there and you can spend a good hour on the shore rummaging, looking in the pools. And what's really great now is our nearly all of our dedicated shore searchers have now got the waterproof cameras. They're much more affordable than they were a few years ago. And the TG cameras, which is what all these photos have been taken with, are brilliant for macro, for close-ups, and the colours and the shapes. It's absolutely brilliant, and it's a really fun part of the shore search experience, is going off and finding cool stuff. So yeah, some really great discoveries have been made on shore search surveys. The first St. Piran's crab recorded in Cornwall was on a shore search survey in 2016. We've been monitoring giant gobies, which are a rare species, through shore search. We love finding things like sea slugs, clingfish, Celtic sea slugs, and the fish there in the middle that is curled up. That's a really cool, and that's a Montague sea snail. Yeah, one of my faves. So there you go. Right, so now we've got a few slides now about the data portal. So I'm going to hand over just to Ben to explain that.
Well, thanks, Matt. Your slide sharing is done for the evening. Please, can you stop share? And we're going to take over from my laptop.
Cool.
Okay, we're good to go.
Zooming in because I was sitting next to Jim there. So just a quick bit on the Shore Search data portal. So once some of your groups or all of your groups have got the login, you can log into the Shore Search data portal, and with a bit more training, because it's a little bit, data heavy and bits and pieces, you can log in to here where, oops, that was the wrong one. You'll come to this. So this is where you get all of the data goes. So it all goes into here. So this is pretty much what I do, looking at everyone's surveys and going through, making sure everyone's got cool pictures and the right percentage covers and the right counts and things. So in here, you can go and see the survey type. So if it was a quadrat biodiversity survey, the date it was done, the site name of where it was taking place, the number of samples, so it says 15 there, so that would have been 15 quadrats surveyed in that site. And then the status, is it a draft, so has it just been uploaded, so it needs to be verified and gone through once by me, and then it gets sent further on down the line to other people that are far more experienced than me to survey it further. And then you can go into edit, so then you can edit it and start adding some pictures and things that you feel like you've missed. So you think, oh, there was a really good picture I took at that, and then I want to add that into that species because it's a lot clearer picture and things. You can start posting them into here. So then you'll be met with this. So there's your cluster of all of the quadrats that you've done there. And then if you were to zoom out a little bit, and then it will go to like a cluster of 15. And then you click on the little orange dot where it says cluster of 15, and it will give you all of your quadrats that you surveyed and done. So then you can go into there and start looking at the individual species and then adding some more pictures or changing the names or things if you wanted to change some things around on it. But again, like I said, I can give you some more training, or we can give you some more training if you guys feel like you want to go in and start editing some of your surveys, which would be really, really cool. So
I think my favourite bit of this is going on and seeing where people have used their location and making sure they're not in the car park or in the cafe, and just verifying where on the shore those quadrats are.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very important point as well, because when you see the cluster that you have on the screen there, you can see that they're all in a pretty straightish line. So you can see you were surveying quite nicely down the shoreline, but some I do get that are way over, like all the way over to the right-hand side, and you think, okay, let's edit that one and put that in the right place where it should be. So that's a very good point to see where the surveys were done. So that was a little bit about the data portal. And next we're going to do the fun bit, which is the ID quiz. So has everyone got some pens and paper ready to do the ID quiz?
Or the Notes app on your phone, or anything. Give us some thumbs up on the Zoom, or Matt, give us a quick yes, because we can't see the Zoom, if we're good to go. Oh, he's talking, but we're on. We're not. No, don't worry.
Yeah, there's loads of thumbs ups coming in.
Great, let's go.
Everyone's going crazy with their thumbs.
So it's just for fun. So you can name 3 things on it. So you can name if it's the family, so like if it's a brown seaweed, green seaweed, or crustacean, or whatever. And then another point for like the common name, and then if you're feeling really adventurous, the scientific name. So let's get started. So what does everyone think that one is? So it has been mentioned before, and it is found on the mid-shore, and it is found what other hints and things could I say?
That's enough on the
I think that's enough about actually
give it a few seconds.
Accidentally saying the name. All good? Next. So what is that? So again, Matt has spoken about this one. It is found on the mid-shore-ish to the low shore, a bit further down. Next one. So that, what would people think that is? Again, it's hard to not actually say the species name every time I see a picture of it. So what do you think that is? What species is it? What type of organism is it?
What colour is it?
What colour is it? Yeah, what colour is it? That's another really good cue and a good clue to give. So next. So what would people think that one is? So I'll give you one clue. It's definitely a seaweed.
Do you mean the seaweed in the middle, Ben?
Yes.
Because there's quite a few species in that picture.
Yeah, that is quite hard actually, isn't it? So it is the seaweed in the middle with the larger fronds, shall we say?
Where your cursor is.
Where my cursor is. Cool. Next one. So what is that species? So again, Matt has touched on it briefly in the subject that was connected to this video. Really hard not to actually say even what family it is. So next one. So again, Matt has spoken about this one. It has got these clear defining features on it. Next one. So that's a really good picture, actually. I love that picture. It's an awesome picture of it.
Do you want the snail in the middle?
Yes. I don't think Did you speak about this one, Matt? I don't think you did you?
No, it wasn't included in the presentation.
Oh, so it's a little bit of a curveball species.
When I was a kid, you weren't allowed to leave until you found one of them when you went to
Really?
I spend my whole summer wearing them as a necklace.
That's a good clue. Right, so next one. So that's a beautiful picture of that. Again, that beautiful iridescent tips on it that again Matt's spoken about earlier. Cool. Next one. So Matt has definitely spoken about this one. It's got a common household name, I suppose, that you'd see in and around your house. That's a clue.
If you were switched on in the squirt section, you might be able to get this.
I mean, that's a big clue. Next one. So that's a beautiful picture. Beautiful, beautiful picture. I don't think Matt's actually discussed this one. So this will be another bit of a curveball species if anyone's...
We did speak a little bit about it.
Did we?
We spoke about it in the context of it not being what it is on the app.
Okay, yeah. I
the
think we did,
difficulty with naming it on the app.
Yeah, I think we did, didn't we?
Yeah.
So there's a
more of a
there's a slight
walkover.
clue.
More of a walkover one, isn't it? You don't get it in a quadrat that often.
I have had it in a quadrat.
Unless you're very lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very lucky to get this.
You'd hear about it if we had one in a quadrat.
Yeah, definitely.
From the other end of the shore.
Definitely. I love these guys. They're so cute. So next one. So that's another beautiful picture. Lovely close-up picture of this species of seaweed. And the next one. So that's an awesome guy hiding under a rock there. Brilliant name. He's got very defining features. Slightly aggressive.
Again, one that we didn't mention.
No, we didn't mention this one. Didn't mention this one.
Yeah, I've got a whole presentation just on crabs. We'll do that another day.
What? That's a crab? What? I'm giving it away.
Matt definitely didn't say what.
I didn't say what species it was.
No, I know.
But you said it was. Yeah, okay.
It's all good.
I did give it away a bit.
But... I'm sure it's quite obvious. Right, the next one. Again, that's a really, really cool picture. Lovely close-up picture of this one. Matt has spoken about this one as well. The clue I would give is cheerleaders wave them.
Well, that's very obvious.
It could be anything. They could wave flags. They could anything.
I was going with Matt spoke about it in the context of its origin and its structure.
Okay, that's a lot more a lot better than my clue. And the next one.
So we're going for not the light green.
So the one that is, not green in this picture. And the next one, super cool, this one. Absolutely love this. I don't think Matt said the name of it, but there was definitely a picture of it.
We're going for type of organism as well. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And the next one. So, bit of context about this picture. So this is an example of how kind of not to take your pictures, because it's extremely hard to tell what kind of species that is from a picture like that. So the clearer, the better. So pictures like that are okay, but again, it's going to be quite hard to definitively tell the species. I won't name any names who took the picture, but he has glasses and he's been speaking a lot tonight. So
Oh, thank you.
I think our point with this is to remember that when you're on the shore, all of the photos you're associating with species are going to be verified by many people sitting on desks without much context. And we do require a photograph for every record. So please try and make them in focus.
Definitely. Very, very good point. So the next one, that's a beautiful picture. Really clear, defining features. Lovely.
Yeah, I took that.
I was waiting for you to try and redeem yourself.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful picture. You can really see all the features of it, and it's really, really see that is an absolutely perfect example of that species picture of it. So you can really clearly see what it is and its defining features, which will really help people ID it further down the line. So that's really, really good example. Cool. So the next one, again, we're looking for the big species in the middle without giving too much away. It's a brilliant photo that you've got quite a few other different species in and around it as well. Good. The next one. This is probably my favorite species of this organism, if I'm honest. Again, Matt has spoken about it, and it's got a very cool common name. Associated with a land animal.
I don't think I really went on about it much. I just sort of casually I just sort of named it, didn't I? So
You did name it.
You can tell everyone about it
Yeah.
in a bit more detail in a minute. So that makes 18. How many have we got? 20.
2 more.
Wow.
So this one. Again, Matt has showed some really cool pictures of this, and it doesn't just look like this. It can look in different patterns and things. That was actually the last one. So
Cool.
we'll scroll all the way back to the beginning. What was the first? That was it. So, and we'll go to the answers. So this species was a brown seaweed, and it was bladderwrack. And if you got the scientific name, is Fucus vesiculosis. So give yourself a massive tick if you got all 3 of them or some of them. Again, it doesn't matter. It's just building up that knowledge and building up that ID skill set in your head of seeing what this species is and trying to ID it. Next one. So that was a grey top shell, if you got that. So that's a good defining picture of both the top and bottom of it. Next. So that was take over.
Did anyone get it? Should we ask the audience?
You can ask the audience if you want. If anyone got it,
you can unmute yourself if you want.
Tunnel rack.
This one.
Someone in the comment got it right. Cole got it right. Yeah. Do you want to say what it is?
Go on then, what was it?
It's that's Mastocarpus stellatus, the false Irish moss. So well done, Cole.
Excellent work.
Yeah.
Next one. So
It's
what was the brown one in the middle? So it was a brown seaweed and it is serrated rack, but again on the app it comes up as tooth rack, and that is Fucus serratus. So well done if you got that. Oops. Next one. So that was a painted top shell.
You jumped one, mate.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, by accident. You jumped the egg rack. Oh, I gave it away.
that was the one after. The top
Oh, it's
shell.
after. Oh,
It's
sorry.
after the
Okay.
painted top shell.
You went too far. Yeah.
So again, if anyone didn't hear what Matt just said, that is...
So that's a bit of a weird picture because those round structures, those are reproductive structures. They're not the actual floats. So that could have thrown people. Because in that picture you can't really see a float, can you? They're all those weird flattened sort of structures.
Yeah.
So it's not
Really
that
cool.
typical. So it's a bit of a tricky question, that one.
It was. Next. So this was a Arctic cowrie, which is super cool. And they're like so small and they're so epic to find. I love finding a cowrie. Next. So
let's wait. Let's ask if anyone knew it.
Well, got the cowrie.
Yeah. No. This one.
That one.
Yeah. Does anyone know what that was? Yes. Keith Raven got it right. Sally, Tracy. Yeah. Noel. Well done. Yeah. Irish moss.
Fantastic.
That is a really cool seaweed, and so varied. You know, the picture I showed of it was quite different.
Yeah.
Actually. I've seen them really yellow as well in the summer. They go really bleached.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. Next. So that was the clue, was a household item that's always always on in your house sometimes. So it's a light bulb sea squirt.
Yeah.
So again, Matt did touch on the light bulb sea squirts, and they're super cool to find, and they're quite easy to ID as well because they're very clearly, see-through, and they look just like a light bulb, so they're quite easy to ID. Next. So if anyone got this one, it was a cushion starfish, which they're so cute. They're like the size of like a 50p piece. They are absolutely beautiful to find. They are so cool.
There's another species that's smaller, isn't there? That's more colourful. Asteroinophylactica, the much rarer one, but this is the common one you get.
Yeah, very common. And then if anyone got this one, so this was anyone in the chat?
Let's see in the chat. Yeah, let's see in the chat if anyone got it. Yes. Jenny, Keith, Andrew. Well done.
Well done. Excellent stuff.
Andrew got the scientific name as well. So it's Pepidulus osmundia.
Osmundia, yeah, definitely.
The one that I feed people. Truffle of the sea, they call it.
Feed people. Constantly eating the shore. So this guy here, so Matt didn't speak about him, but he is a velvet swimming crab. Or what other people call him is the devil crab, because he's got them super defining red eyes. So yeah, they're a little bit aggressive to handle. And then this one. So anyone want to hazard a guess what it was?
Oh, we've got no answers.
Pom-pom.
Pom-pom, well done. Was that the clue that I gave you?
Jack, Noel, Maria. Yeah, pom-pom weed.
Fantastic.
Coelacanthus okamurae. Yeah.
Yes. So next, this was one that Matt said again. So this was a wireweed. So if anyone got that one, well done. Very clear, defining features on it.
Yeah.
And then next, this little guy. Does anyone know what this little guy is?
Nice.
Yeah. Well done.
Cole
if you
got it right.
this.
Jack got it right. Well done.
That's
no,
cool.
it's Maria got it wrong. Sorry, Maria. That's an orange club sea slug. Four-line nudibranch is quite different. Yeah, it hasn't got as many spikes all over it. Have a look at a picture of it. It's quite different. Yeah. Limacia clavigera. That was good. This is an excellent photo.
Matt's epic picture. So, does anyone know what it was? I'll be very, very impressed if anyone got this.
I think it's tooth top shells.
Oh,
Tooth top shells. Yeah.
So do you generally believe
hard to tell. Because you can
do you
see
believe it's a tooth top shell, Matt?
You can see all the mother of pearl on it, can't you? Like making it look white on the top and underneath. So yeah.
So
am I wrong?
It's actually it's a flat top shell. So so it's easy to get things wrong. There's a good example right there that Matt just said. So he thought it was a tooth, but it's actually a flat top shell. So it's easy to get the IDs wrong with pictures that are a bit cloudy and a bit not that good. Next. So did anyone get this one? Anyone in the chat get this one?
Yeah. We've got Cole's doing well.
Cole's doing very well.
And Maria got it.
Fantastic. Again, it's really good. With a good picture like that, you can clearly see what it is.
If you can't tell exactly which one it is, it's better to have CMAT or bryozoan than nothing at all. But on the other weird thing about this CMAT is often the hairs get worn down because it grows on seaweed, doesn't it? And if the waves are washing it around, you'll find it quite often and you won't see the hairs. It is hairy CMAT.
Next one. So the big orange organism in the middle. So it's one of my favorite bryozoans, red ripple bryozoan. So they are beautiful. They go all crinkly and beautifully like red on the edges, and then it fades away as it gets into the middle. Love this one.
Around Falmouth, you see it almost completely covering rocks in some places, and it's a new arrival. It's only been here for a few years. It's getting more and more abundant. Whether it will cause any problems, we don't know, because it is a non-native.
Yeah. Cool. The next one. So this is my favorite species of red seaweed. So it is a bunny ears.
See in the chat. Oh.
No! Did someone say in the chat?
Yeah, no. Noel got it. I was quite interested in knowing how many people knew it, but we'll find out in a minute, won't we? Yeah, that's a good one, though, isn't it? The bunny's ear. Yeah.
Lomentaria reticulata. Beautiful, beautiful name. Love that name so much. And then the last one.
Anyone on the chat? Nice. Star Ascidian.
Well done.
Fantastic.
And I'm hoping that everyone found that fun and that some of you are new to this. I'm hoping you enjoyed that and you did find that you got a load right. Should we see who won? Or is that not the point?
I mean, it's not a really strict competition.
If you got more than 10, you're pretty good, aren't you?
Yeah.
Doing really well with your IDs if you got more than 10.
Give us a raise your hand on Zoom if you got more than 50%.
Steve
nice.
did.
2,
4,
5.
Stella did. Excellent.
Good stuff.
Well done. Fantastic stuff, people.
We've got Kath and Sally in the audience. You guys definitely
being very quiet.
You should have got 20, both of you.
Yeah, If you want to ask, Matt, I'll happily tell you.
Go on. Yes, please.
What did you get, Sally?
Oh, hang on, let me just double check here. Oh, it says 20.
Well done. Good. I didn't even know you were there. Well done. Well, Sally and Kath have been like massively committed to Shoresearch for years, so I'm very pleased that they've been paying attention. I knew they know their stuff. But yeah, brilliant. Right. Well,
I'm carrying on. I've got it.
are you gonna keep going?
Yep. I'm really aware that we are running over this evening, so bear with me for a little bit longer. I've got what's next, how to get involved, our volunteer system, and then we're closing. So we're nearly there. You would have read when you signed on to the event that for your training to be completed for this season, you have to attend a practical session as well as this online session. We have these sessions in Falmouth, Newquay, Mounts Bay and St Austell Bay. There is an additional Falmouth training going live if the one that is currently up there fills up. So if you are Falmouth based, I say this because I know that a lot of the people on the call are. Don't worry, we'll launch a backup event should the one that's up at the moment run out. These can be booked on the Cornwall Wildlife Trust website, and the email that I sent this afternoon has the promo code so that you can book that for free. So how do we get involved? We've spoken a lot about the local groups system this evening. So in Cornwall, with Cornwall Wildlife Trust, we're really lucky. We have 22 local marine conservation groups. They're all community led, and there is probably one in your local patch, whether it's Falmouth Marine Group, Mounts Bay Marine Group, St Ives Marine Group. They're everywhere. And if they don't already do Shoresearch, then it's because they're looking for a person that could be you to start it up with the support of the Shoresearch team and other local marine groups. We all help each other in this Your Shore network. The Cornwall Wildlife Trust website has a link to all of the associated groups and the contact information. Join your local group, get the practice in, spend time on the shore. That's the way ID gets better. It's the way you become more familiar with the records and using the app. I'll include it all in the follow-up email, how to get involved, how to find the local groups, and a bit about what the Your Shore network is. And then I'm going to finish with Assemble. So if you do not know what Assemble is, it is our volunteer management system at the Wildlife Trust. So when you have completed this training and a practical session, you will receive a link from me to join our volunteer. This is when you register to become a fully fledged Cornwall Wildlife Trust Shoresearch volunteer. What can you do with Assemble? We put our Shoresearch events on there. There's a document hub that's got all the resources available, things like the substrates, diagrams that I put in the chat earlier, as well as a beginner's guide to Shoresearch, just some resources like that. It's a space where you can log your volunteer hours. Now, why do we want you to do that? It makes sure that your contribution is recognised and counted. It's a real quantitative record of volunteering experience, whether that's for CVs, courses, references, for those of you maybe at early career stage. And it's a place where you can essentially see your impact grow over time. On the other side, for us, it helps the trust track workload and avoid volunteer burnout. And most importantly, from our side of things, it helps the trust have impact evidence, which is really important for funding bids and grant applications, which we apply to help grow Shoresearch, grow its volunteers, put on more training events. It's all evidence-based, and this programme and logging your volunteer hours is really, it shows impact, which is all that fundraisers really need to see. So if you are not registered on Assemble, you are not officially a registered Shoresearch volunteer. So come to the practical session, use the link, join on. There's loads of help. I am an Assemble guru. I can help you if you ever have trouble with it. But please, when that link comes through, join on to Assemble. And that's it from me. Our thank yous on most of the photos in this presentation have been taken by Matt Slater, Zenny Hayton, and Adele, some very dedicated Shoresearch volunteers. And follow some of our social media, but you will receive all of this information in the follow-up email tomorrow morning. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and you can go to more than one practical session. We will not be running practical sessions in June and July at the moment. However, we would advocate that you join your local group and see if they're doing a survey, or even travel across to another shore. I'm just picking questions out the chat now before we finish. And we'll stick on. We are finished. I don't know if Matt's got anything else to say, but if you do have any burning questions, I'll hang around for 5 minutes and you can ask me while people are leaving. Back to you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Yeah, thanks for bearing with us with the technical problems. Well, my technical problems. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing some of you guys down on the shore. And yeah, and I hope you'll get a lot out of Shoresearch. It's a brilliant project. So thanks for getting involved. And thanks to Ben and to Gemma. I think yeah, it's been a really good evening. Right, see you on the shore.